Well, much of our discussion about heart health is primarily focused on diet, and properly so. There are other components of our life that can have a significant impact on one's journey to health. Community is one such lifestyle feature that is critically important and sometimes overlooked. Even more important is how we can address disparities in cardiovascular health education. For example, Blacks and Hispanics in underserved communities are at the greatest risk for both heart disease and stroke. Tonight, our special guest is Dr. Naa-Solo Tettey, who founded the organization HeartSmarts. Their goal is to reduce the incidence of cardiovascular disease, as this evening we explore the intersection of plant-based eating, community, and faith. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Spells from Planned Parenthood Metro New York, and along with my cohorts, Judy Zerden and Ben Martins, we welcome you once again to another episode of Heart to Healthy Heart, plant-based conversations that can save your life. As always, go to the chat box, let us know where you're viewing from, ask any questions, and we'll get to as many as we can as time will allow by the end. But please let me now introduce our special guest for the night. Dr. Naa-Solo Tettey is an associate professor of public health and the founder and director of HeartSmarts at the Ronald O. Perelman Heart Institute of New York Presbyterian Hospital, Weill Cornell Medical Center. HeartSmarts aims to decrease cardiovascular health disparities by empowering participants to adopt a plant-based lifestyle. Dr. Tettey is an expert in faith-based health education and has been featured in the New York Times, ABC News, and the Harlem Times. She holds a Doctor of Education in Health and Behavior Studies from Columbia University and a Master of Public Health from the University of Connecticut. And she is a Master Certified Health Education Specialist and an American College of Sports Medicine Certified Wellness Coach. Dr. Tettey, thank you so much for taking the time tonight to be with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, why don't we just start with a basic question about the plant-based portion of the conversation. Tell us about your plant-based journey. Have you always been plant-based eater, or was there something that brought you into that space?
Sure. So I have not always been plant-based. My plant-based journey started about 25 years ago. I grew up in Roosevelt, Long Island, which some would consider to be a food desert or food swamp of sorts, an area that was inundated by fast food, a lack of access to a lot of healthy fruits and vegetables, but more so, the culture in that environment was not one that tended to support the idea of eating a vegan or plant-based or even vegetarian diet. So I grew up eating all of the junk food that you could imagine. It wasn't until I got to college, when I went to Northeastern University in Boston, where I was exposed to different ways of eating and also exposed to the idea that eating healthy was actually a cool thing to do. And so my plant-based journey started there. As I continued my studies and I learned more about health disparities, and I started to wonder, I've always been a person who questions things. I started to wonder, are these health disparities something that's inevitable, or is it something that we can actually do something about? Is it a birthright that these communities of color are suffering so much from these health conditions? And so the more I learned, the more I came to understand that many of these health disparities are preventable, and one of the ways to do that is through diet. And so I became more versed, more educated in the whole food, plant-based lifestyle. But it started about, I would say 25 years ago was the initial prompt for me to start thinking more about becoming plant-based.
Wow, so that's awesome. So how did HeartSmarts get started?
Sure.
Well,
so
explain first what HeartSmarts is to everyone listening, because they may not know.
HeartSmarts is a community-based program that focuses on empowering people through education and action to take better care of themselves, to focus more on their health. And one of the aspects of the program is to help people move closer to adopting a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. In 2012, I was hired by New York Presbyterian Hospital as a health educator and director of community engagement. And at the time, there was a grant that was available, and they said to me, you can develop anything you want with this grant. And so I decided to do some research to see what kind of programs were out there that specifically targeted the faith community, because the grant was for faith-based health education. And I didn't find anything that actually incorporated biblical scripture into the health message. And so at that time, it may have existed, but I didn't see it. That led me to create the first HeartSmarts program, which is HeartSmarts Part 1, 7 Steps to a Healthy Heart. And so from 2012 to now, we now have 7 different parts of HeartSmarts, and most of them, I would say 5 of those 7 have to do with whole foods, plant-based nutrition. But it started in 2012 with that initial grant from New York Presbyterian Hospital.
Wow. So which communities do you primarily focus on serving in HeartSmarts?
So HeartSmarts is for everyone. Everyone can benefit from it, but it does have a larger focus on the African American community. As we're talking about health disparities, we know that African American people are more impacted by cardiovascular disease, stroke, hypertension. And so HeartSmarts really has a focus on helping that community to improve those issues, but anyone can take the HeartSmarts program.
And could you just tell us again what the core message is of HeartSmarts that you're trying to empower people to do?
Sure. So to answer that question, I want to first say that there are many things that we take for granted. And one of them is the idea that everyone has access to the same information. And so as someone who has been blessed to be given an education and to have all of the degrees that I have, all of the training that I have, my intention is not to use that to serve myself, but to use it to serve my community. And so in the books that I've read, the documentaries that I've watched, my goal is to share all of that information with people who I come in contact with, people who can benefit from it. And so HeartSmarts is exactly what the name says, for people to become smarter about taking care of their heart and their overall health. And so when you talk to people who are in the HeartSmarts program, they're going to tell you about the gut microbiome, about cruciferous vegetables. They're going to be able to speak to you in ways that perhaps people wouldn't expect people from certain communities to understand certain concepts and ideas.
Thanks.
Good evening, Dr. Tettey. How does the program exactly work? How long does it take? And
Sure. So when we were in person, the HeartSmarts program started off, I should say, in person prior to COVID. And so at that time, people from around New York City would come to New York Presbyterian Hospital, and I would train them for 12 weeks, 3 hours each week in the initial HeartSmarts curriculum. And then they would go back into their community and teach for those 12 weeks. And so the standard HeartSmarts program is 12 weeks, about 1 to 2 hours per week per class. However, when COVID happened, I created something called the HeartSmarts Virtual Challenge. And so that condensed the program into a 7 to 9 week offering, which can be done online. So to answer your question, it just depends on which version of the program people are interested in. So the in-person is a little bit longer, so that can be 10 to 12 weeks, and the virtual can be 7 to 9 weeks. And the way it works is if someone is interested in joining, they would go to heartsmarts.com and fill out the contact form. One thing I should say about the premise of HeartSmarts as well is that oftentimes our friend groups, our families, are the ones that are contributing to the unhealthy behaviors that we're engaging in. And they're the ones that can be the least supportive when we decide to try and make those changes, those positive health changes in our lives. HeartSmarts is a family, it's a community. And so when you come into this program, we know who you are, we know what your health issues are, we know what your emotional issues are, and perhaps the struggles that you've had with food. And so we walk alongside you throughout your entire journey. I know all of the people who are in the program. I have been, so to speak, chastised because of the fact that the program participants have my personal phone number. I do the program with them so that they don't feel like they are alone. So HeartSmarts is more than just a program. It's a community, it's a family, it's a social network, and we're changing the narrative around African American and Hispanic people, that we don't have to be dying from all of these preventable health conditions, that instead we can support each other and create a new normal that being healthy is normal, eating healthy is normal, exercising is normal, and we'll support each other in doing that. So that really is HeartSmarts.
Wow, that sounds good. Now you mentioned it's faith-based. In what ways does faith-based health education improve heart health?
Sure. So research has shown us that the message from a faith leader, a pastor, a reverend, is going to resonate more with a person about their health than perhaps something they hear from their doctor. And so if it comes from the pulpit, if the church leader is saying we need to improve our diet, we need to move more, we need to manage our stress better, congregants are going to receive that message. Likewise, in HeartSmarts, we take it a step further in that we connect the health message with the biblical scripture. So to give you an example, HeartSmarts Part 1, the first lesson is your body is a temple, know your risk for heart disease. When we explore that scripture and really ask people, what does that mean for them, for their body to be a temple? And people will answer like, well, if my body's a temple, I should take care of it. I should focus on my health. And then so the next question is, are you doing that? And oftentimes the answer is no. And so that opens the space to now speak more to the idea of, if you believe your body is a temple, if you follow this belief system in this scripture, why are you not treating it as the body temple that you say it is? And so from there, we can introduce now concepts and ideas for people to be better able to take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about your ambassadors.
Wow. Well, my ambassadors, if some of them are here, I want to shout them all out because they are the most amazing people. The HeartSmarts ambassadors are health educators or community health workers, and they really are the backbone of this program. The HeartSmarts ambassadors are trained, as I said, before they would come to the hospital, but now they're trained virtually. And through this program, the HeartSmarts ambassadors learn about facilitation skills. They learn about the different tenets of heart disease prevention, chronic disease prevention, but also whole food, plant-based lifestyle. And they have to go through the program first in order to become an ambassador. The ambassadors are the ones who lead the different teams. So HeartSmarts groups are broken up into teams led by a trained ambassador. And the ambassadors really are my eyes and ears in the program. They are my support. And they are the ones that coach, encourage, mentor all of the participants to get to their health and wellness goals.
I can see the energy in the chat box. How many people are in HeartSmarts?
Wow, there's thousands of people have gone through the program, but at any given time, there's about 200 to 400. Now that we have both the virtual and the in-person, it's like a balance between the two. So at any given point, we have about 200 to 400. But over the years, since we've been doing this since 2012, there have been thousands of people who've gone through the program.
Thank you.
So just to get back to something that you said before about it started as part 1 and then there were several parts after that. Could you explain the parts and how they evolved?
Sure. So again, HeartSmarts Part 1, 7 Steps to a Healthy Heart, really focuses on what is heart disease, what is hypertension, what is cholesterol, what is diabetes, how are they all related to overall heart health, and what are the ways that they can be prevented. HeartSmarts Part 2 introduces our participants to the idea of a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. And so that's where we introduced information about dairy not being healthy and consuming meat not being healthy, and the idea of processed foods, ultra-processed foods, oils. We feel that it's too much to just introduce that in the beginning, in the first part of the program, because everyone's starting at a different place. But by the time they get to HeartSmarts 2, most participants are ready and open to receiving that information. Oftentimes, when we tell people that they need to cut back on certain foods that they're consuming, it can be like telling them a family member has died. It can be traumatic for them. And so I believe that it's a process that takes time. And so HeartSmarts Part 2 really starts that introduction. HeartSmarts Part 3 has to do with the gut microbiome. Part 4 has to do with processed foods and sugar. Part 5 has to do with raw living foods. Part 6 has to do with sprouting. And Part 7, which we just started, has to do with cleansing, detoxing, and juicing.
Wow. So is the virtual challenge something that most people are doing or now, or is it more in person, or is the in-person part just required for the ambassadors?
They both are pretty much attended at the same rate. The virtual version allows us to offer the program nationally. So there are people in HeartSmarts who are not in the New York tri-state area, who are all over the country, and some also in other countries. It also gives access to people who are in the New York tri-state area who cannot attend at a church or at a community center or something like that. So it allows them to still participate in the program. But I would say the participation is about equal between the in-person and virtual program.
Wow. So getting back to the whole food, plant-based part of it, what's the basic message that you're giving in that part, which I guess is part 2?
The main idea, again, meeting people where they are. In HeartSmarts, we do not deny the fact that certain foods may taste good and people may feel good in the moment when they're eating those things. What we stress is the idea of being healthy to live a good life and not living for the moment. So our main foundation for HeartSmarts is really Joel Fuhrman's message of eating to live and not living to eat. And so we have to teach people, many people again, or for the first time, how to eat properly. Because as I shared, many of us come from communities that are food deserts or food swamps, or cultures where there's large meat intake, high intake of white rice, other processed foods, oils. And those are things that now we're used to, things that perhaps we crave. And so we have to remove that, help people through the process of understanding that something they may have been doing 30, 40, 50 years has not been good for them and has led them to have many of the health conditions that they do have. However, they have an attachment to it. And so when we stand on the principle of eating to live and looking at food as a source of nourishment and not just a source of pleasure, it allows people to start that process of accepting the idea that, yes, I may want those other things, but I also want to be here for my grandchildren. I also want to not have this pain. I also want to not be on this medication. And so those things, we always say to our participants, what is your why? And the more someone understands their why and is connected to it, all of the other distractions tend to go away, and they're more open to the idea of following a whole foods plant-based diet and sticking with it.
Why are underserved communities at such an increased risk for cardiovascular and other chronic diseases?
Well, that is a big question. There's many reasons for that, and we have to look at what we call the social determinants of health. And one of the main reasons is the way that communities are structured. So again, if you have communities that don't have access to the things that support healthy living and a healthy lifestyle, people in those communities are going to naturally not be well because they're not eating things that are going to make them healthy, but they don't have access to it as well. In addition to that, there's a large body of research coming out about the impact of racism on our health, and especially for people of color, the impact of racism and oppression on their health. And so as a result, they are producing excess levels of cortisol that's impacting their immune system adversely, leading to hypertension, leading to other chronic health conditions that are impacting the heart. That's one thing that we don't talk about enough, the impact of stress, but also the impact of racial oppression, of racism in this country and how it impacts the health of people of color. So lack of access, lack of culturally competent healthcare providers, and lack of education. As I said before, we take for granted that people have information regarding what is a healthy diet, what are we supposed to be consuming, how do we prevent certain health conditions, and we know that we are up against the corporate giants. So if you turn on the news or turn on the television and you see a commercial or a news story that says chocolate is good for you and you should eat it every day, and that's sponsored by whatever chocolate manufacturer, everybody doesn't have the discernment to be able to know that that's not good information. We teach that in HeartSmarts as well.
Good.
Wow. Amazing. I love your program, and you know that. But anyway, can you now share? I know some of your members are here and they're commenting, but can you share some of the wonderful success stories and results of some of your members with everyone?
Sure, and there's so many success stories, so many amazing testimonies from people in HeartSmarts. Generally speaking, our participants tend to lose weight, they improve their blood pressure, they come off of their medications, they come off their sleep PAP machines if they were on one, they have more energy. Their doctors end up asking them, what are you doing? And they end up having to share with them that they're in the HeartSmarts program. If I can think of the person that I would say is the biggest success story to me, it would be Yetka Carlisle. And she has lost the most amount of weight, I would say about 80 pounds. She has come off of her medications. She is someone who was not active before she came in the program. She's doing 15 to 20,000 steps, if not more, per day. We have a morning exercise class called our Rise and Shine Feel the Heartbeat Fitness that we do every day, Monday to Friday. She is on there. She is just a superstar. So that's one person. We have so many people who have that story of how their health has improved by being a part of this community. And I can think of another person, Ms. Sharon Ham Wilson, who came off of her sleep PAP machine, who has lost a considerable amount of weight, who is more physically active, whole food, plant-based, and it can just go on and on and on. I am really proud of the participants in this program and the hard work that they put in to reaching their health and wellness goals.
And Yetka is actually watching right now, and she has a question for you, and that is, what is the role of church leadership in promoting health behavior?
Sure. So one of the tenets of HeartSmarts is that we are founded in health behavior theory. And as a professor of public health, I know the importance of having a conceptual framework around any work that you do in health education. And so for HeartSmarts, it's based in something called the social cognitive theory. And one of the aspects of the social cognitive theory is that the environment has to be supportive of the health behavior change for it to be sustainable. And so in a church or a faith institution, if the leader is the one who is supporting the health message, if the leader is the one who is exhibiting the health behaviors, that makes a huge difference. That means that there's not going to be a fish fry or fried chicken dinner after church, but instead they might have a salad bar. That means that during the week, there's going to be exercise classes. That means that they're going to have a program like HeartSmarts there. Church leadership is key for faith-based organizations to be able to move forward in terms of improving the health of the community. It starts at the top. So likewise, if the leadership in the church is not into health and wellness, it's going to show in what the church is doing and also in the congregation.
Dr. Tettey, sorry.
No, go for it, Ben.
Can you tell us about the life programs?
The lifestyle programs?
Yeah.
So HeartSmarts lifestyle programs were created, again, that came out of COVID. So we had a lot of new people come into the program during that time. And I'm really proud of what we did when we were all on lockdown for COVID, because instead of just staying inside and eating unhealthy and not moving, the HeartSmarts participants were doing the opposite. And so the HeartSmarts lifestyle programs were born out of the virtual programs. And so what that means is people who are in the lifestyle programs have kind of aged out of the program. They've done all of the different parts. And so we create new programming for them. So I could say that all of the parts of HeartSmarts after part 2, part 1 and part 2 are the main HeartSmarts programs. And then everything else are the lifestyle programs. These are for people who are now living the whole foods, plant-based lifestyle. And so they continue with these programs like sprouting and fiber fuels and things like that to be able to continue in their journey. And I always make the joke that we have to create these programs because people just don't want to leave HeartSmarts. And so as a result, we have to have continual programming for them.
Now, other than diet, what other components of lifestyle do your programs cover?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Other than diet, what other components of lifestyle do your programs cover?
Sure. So we use a wellness app in HeartSmarts where we track our different wellness activities. And so every day we try to get at least 10,000 to 15,000 steps, some kind of movement, strength training, water intake, fruit and vegetable intake, which is diet, but we track that. in the app. And then we have something where people have to log if they have learned something about health daily. I strongly believe that, similar to those who are in the faith community, they believe that you have to stay in the word in order to stay on your faith walk. I believe that about health messaging, that you have to stay in the health message. Either you're watching a video, you're reading a book, you're looking at a YouTube clip, something where daily it's reinforced, because we are constantly bombarded by the wrong thing to do. And so we have to stay in tune with the right thing to do.
And from that point, a question was asked about how can we get college students as well as high school students, on down to elementary students, interested in a program like this?
Sure. So funny enough, at the university where I teach, I do have students who are trained in the HeartSmarts program, and they are one of the best groups of people to train because they set kind of the standard in their social groups in terms of what's cool. And I often say, for us to get people to want to change their health behaviors, especially younger people, it has to be cool to them. It has to be something that's seen as their social norm. I strongly believe that we need to start this education as early as preschool. Many of us are changing these behaviors much later in life, and it's difficult to do at this time. However, if we are to have perhaps Sunday school programs, preschool books and activities that focus on health, wellness, whole food, plant-based nutrition, that's going to set the foundation for someone as they grow up. They're not going to want all of the unhealthy things perhaps that many of us had to combat growing up. And so they won't be in these situations of being a statistic and falling into these health disparities like many others do. So as young as we can start, the better. And I do have many programs in the works for Sunday school, for elementary school, and for high schools as well. I agree, that's a great place to implement a program like this.
So as we wrap up, how do people get involved in HeartSmarts?
Sure. So this Friday, we have our Go Red Friday event, which will be at 7 p.m. And so you can go to heartsmarts.com /events to register for that. And then after that, every Monday, we will have a different speaker. And again, you would register at the same place. If you just want to join HeartSmarts, learn more about it, speak to me about it, you would go to heartsmarts.com and fill out the contact form, and then I will get back to you. Please be as specific as possible in terms of what you're looking for. But I would say if you're new to the HeartSmarts program, definitely join us on Friday night. One thing I didn't add that we do in HeartSmarts is that we have a lot of fun. We laugh a lot. And I believe that if it's not fun, people are not going to do it for a long time. And so in HeartSmarts, we are supportive of each other. We have a great time, and we encourage each other to live our best lives and be as healthy as we can be.
While you were speaking, I was able to put up the image of the Go Red Friday program. Dr. Tettey, it's just phenomenal. On behalf of Ben, Judy, and myself, the entire plant-powered community, thank you so much for your time tonight, your inspiration, and for all you do to help people live their optimal lives. And don't forget, to learn more about Dr. Tettey's amazing work with HeartSmarts, please go to visit the website, heartsmarts.com. And that's another episode wrapping up. We're back next month on Wednesday, the 28th of February, when our conversation is East meets West, as we converse with integrative health and well-being specialist Dr. Chidi Parikh, with a focus on the gut microbiome and cardiovascular health. As always, if you want to watch any of our episodes again, they are all on the Plant-Powered Metro New York YouTube channel. And on behalf of Judy and Ben, I'm Jim Spellos. We wish you optimal health as always, and hope to see you next month on Heart to Healthy Heart.